This time? All right. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Black.Codes. My name is Trevor Gwynn. I am one piece of the Black.Codes puzzle. Today we have a very special guest with us by the name of Marctwain Carpenter. He is a systems engineer and he has been a member of the Black.Codes for
a little over a year now.
A little over a year now. Ooh, we got some longevity in there. And it's always good to see that. So
10 months lurking, 2 months talking.
Right, hey, that's how we start. You gotta fill it out and see what y'all talking about. And then once you're ready, you've already dropped plenty of gems in there, especially with that Slack channel. But I'll stop rambling. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, Mark.
So lifelong IT professional. Been doing this in one form or another for as long as I can remember. It's probably the only thing I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, like a lot of people from my generation, I started off from wanting to make video games, you know?
Yeah.
So getting in front of programming for that reason.
Yeah.
Not ever making video games. Then developing kind of a sysadmin tool belt as a side effect of learning programming languages and working in systems. Worked independent for a few years and small office, home office, sites like this, setting up networks and things, and kept running into networking all the time. So I ran back to school and grabbed a networking degree just to do more sysadmin stuff.
Yeah.
A little more independence, and then picked up probably what's my first serious corporate job as a security engineer. As a networking company, Bluegrass Cellular, back at home in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Okay.
And
now, is that where you're originally from Bowling Green?
Originally from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Yeah, born and raised. So when going to work for Bluegrass Cellular, somehow my resume gets mixed up with the security guy, and he loves what he sees on the resume.
Yeah.
So that's just like a fairy tale story. It just took off from there. Yeah. Because working as a security engineer, I had this full domain. I had full privileges to solve any problem because you're at the top of the security stack when you're doing that. So I treated it like a sysadmin job, but having that security title in 2013-14 when security was super hot just like it is now, it skyrocketed everything. So when little Bowling Green got to not be enough, and I kind of noticed how hot Nashville was, I thought I'd step out. So came down here and now I'm working for I think what's still the largest private company in Nashville, and loving it, man.
Yeah, you're a tech Swiss Army knife as far as superstar.
I think so. I don't know if it's enough anymore today. You know, everybody is allowed to be a jack of all trades now, be multidisciplinary. For a while there, when I was making that transition, it wasn't safe to be that.
Right.
And so it's really, really exciting now that you can be a multidisciplinary sysadmin and not get scared away.
Yeah.
Where before you had to focus on your resume and stuff like that, or you'd get rejected for being all over the place. You know.
Right. And I know we were discussing that a little bit previously, but like as far as like the catalyst for that trigger where companies went from like, no, we need you to be this one thing as far as a software engineer or front end, as opposed to like, no, we'll take it all. Like we'll take it all because we need it all.
Yeah, I've got a little theory on that. I'm not sure, but it looked like as soon as companies started to wear the moniker of I'm a tech company out front and not just some other sort of company that's up to its eyeballs in technology, then it switched over. Because for the longest time for me, it was companies that had a really important IT role, but they didn't classify themselves as a technology or innovations company.
Yeah.
And somehow that made it where you're as an innovator, as a technologist, your resume and your skill sets, what you might contribute, is being compared to a different classification of employee. You get what I mean? Now we're all out here.
Right.
It's all samurais. So if you got some wild samurai gear on and 2 katanas, nobody's surprised anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean? For a while there, it wasn't like that, man. You showing up and they're looking for
certain gear.
Yeah, very uniform soldier. You know what I mean? And the companies caught on to that. I don't know why why, but I got recruited, and that blew me away. Recruiters, people looking for IT people.
Yeah.
I didn't know what made it blow up like it did in Nashville. I'm just up the street in Bowling Green, doing my thing, and then all of a sudden it's just insanely hot. So there was this big exodus from me and my IT community down here to Nashville to get bigger opportunities.
Yeah.
And in Kentucky, the IT opportunities are so scarce that all of us are sysadmins, if you know what I mean. You're waiting on some guy to retire at a factory so you can get that IT spot and be there, because you're going to do the networking, you're going to do the security, you're going to be doing the back end for their kiosk or point of sale systems, because Kentucky doesn't have a lot of IT opportunities.
Right.
So unexpectedly, that gave me an edge too.
Yeah.
I come to the big market like Nashville, and you've got some killers, but they're very specialized.
Right.
And I was delighted to know, I can network too.
Right.
I have a programming degree and a networking degree, and I've done a lot of systems that I can do a few things, and I like being flexible like that, and companies like that now.
Yeah.
And more than I was expecting to, I was able to compete and kind of get and land. Honestly, it probably doesn't get any more than the job I have now, any better than that.
Man,
and so that's saying a lot, but
I think it's very interesting. You were talking about waiting on the opportunity for a lot of guys in the industry to kind of take us space. I love that our industry moves so fast that you don't have to really
not anymore.
You don't have, you don't have
it'll
to
come
wait
to
too long. And it almost like if you haven't entered, you can look at what's coming next and leapfrog because somebody else is already occupying those spaces.
Yeah.
Or if you already have a skill set, you can just double down on what you see coming next, and that makes you even deadlier. So it's again like a level of abundance where it's room for everyone.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
right.
like the
very good times.
most appealing
it
to
is,
this
man.
industry.
I remember the people. I've been very lucky with the mentors and teachers I've had. It's always been somebody showing me how to do something weird and technical that I was curious about.
Yeah.
And all of them, some of them that I worked with at my last job, which was essentially a networking company, right? Bluegrass Cellular was an ISP, and it was a local rural telecom. So you got your cable and your phone from them, but they had cell phone business too. So big, huge 10 gig fiber network, which just got bought out by Verizon, by the way. But I remember this situation where all of us Cisco guys, they were coming out of school like 2012, 2013. We would run into these traditional circuit switching experts who could not understand virtualization. And it stuck in my head because I've been around long enough to see that happen a couple of times where the technology turns over and you got to make a decision. Now it turns over so quickly that it's having an opposite of benefit to your point. You can just wait on it. You can just pick the next platform and go ahead and get ahead on it.
I know it's coming. Like it's double dutch, baby. I know it's coming.
Again.
And so let me go ahead and get my ducks in a row like now. And of course, I think the biggest conversation we were having was like a lot of these cloud powerhouses and giants when it comes to Azure, Google, and AWS, and just really them planting their roots in Nashville. So it's obviously a good time as any to be here in this city. But what would you say is like obviously like one of the advantages of living here in the tech space as opposed to I don't know, like I guess a smaller town, or maybe
you can cheat a little bit around here. We're still Bible Belt, Rust Belt type of culture, so you can run out to Murfreesboro and be just fine commuting in. You can still cheat a little bit. And I'm out in Mount Juliet now. I lived in Midtown for 3 years, my first 3 years down here, thinking that I needed to remove all the variables of stress, being in traffic being number one, so I could really focus on work. And it was beneficial to me to do that. But when I finally got tired of Midtown and had to be a grown-up halfway, I run out to the suburbs to buy a house, and I found it not as bad as I thought. The commute doesn't bother me, but you're getting a lot more for your dollar. And then there's levels to that too. You can go even smarter. You can go into the legit county. You can go to Whites Creek or somewhere like that in one of these areas and kind of cheat, if you know what I mean, and not get caught up in the rat race so much, because lifestyle and consumption will match your new nice income, and then you're not winning anymore. Because I think the flight from the coast is what's causing Nashville to grow. It's a bit cynical, but I don't see what the growth is all about. I didn't get it was the Titans, but after the flood, man, Nashville just went crazy. But when I visited out in San Mateo for my job, and I looked around and saw, okay, it's broken. The whole economy is broken. It does not work anymore. You got like bungalows like we have in East Nashville at like $4,500 a month and stuff like that. So I think the catalyst for the growth here was flight from other places, so that you can take advantage of that.
Right,
is my point. You can exploit that. Nashville is unique in that way. You can't do that anywhere else right now. Florida's hot. They're trying to make themselves a tech hub, but you can't run down there and set up like you can here and bunker down in somewhere inexpensive and stack your money and still be working at like a first class IT outfit or doing the independent thing like you are and your cohorts are doing, which is even more fly.
Man, I think especially with that commute, I started in Murfreesboro because I stayed in Middle Tennessee for a little while, but during my military stint, I was mainly down in Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
And so when I got back from deployment, I would go to, my commute was from Murfreesboro to Franklin. And so that outside
that's an interesting
loop,
one.
down, and it was no traffic, but it was still about
you could kind of avoid the dragging staying out there.
That was podcast heaven for me as far as like listening to a lot of entrepreneurship content mixed with a lot of development content. And now that I think about it, it was a lot of learning taking place in that quiet, almost meditative state as far as a ride.
What is that? 35 minutes, 40 minutes? Yeah, you just swing around, huh? I get down to Spring Hill sometime and cut up through 840. Out from Mount Juliet, you can jump up one exit and go around and dodge everything. But so I know the area.
When I got there, of course, like not only the company that I worked at, but to find out like even these smaller parts outside that they were starting to gather tech hubs as well, and because like the I guess maybe the commercial cost of like office space down there was more attractive. But
makes
I know
sense,
I think Cracker Barrel headquarters was like Chattanooga, but I think they had a data center set up down there, and then of course the company that I was at and a slew of other ones. But
you know what's going on downtown in the Nashville Yards, right?
No.
Okay. Company I work for, I don't even know if it's okay to say that. I guess it's all right to say I work for Assuria, but next door to us is Amazon's Ops Center. So the two companies right in the middle of the new development is the company I work for and Amazon. And it's not logistics Amazon, it's Amazon Ops. It's their IT guys. It's their systems engineers. And the exit I live on, Golden Bear, I think it's called. I don't know my way around Nashville. I just drive and just take left and right turns. I don't know the numbers of the exits, but that's where Amazon's building the new logistics site. So I'm betting with them, you know what I mean? Like somebody's investing in this area for some reason. So that means Mount Juliet is going to have all those hundreds, if not thousands of jobs coming, and tech to cover it as well. It's interesting times,
Right. And I noticed we were like when it came to those cloud giant companies. My FedEx, of course, being down in Memphis, my father works there, and he talks about like the balance of not leaning towards one or the other. And I was trying to see if you could, because your company, y'all also deal with.
We touch them all. I'm glad for that balance, because early on, I mean, just in 2014, I just still didn't have a grasp of what the cloud was. It wasn't until the last few years that it really. Because I'm doing work and solving problems in the cloud. To me, it just I couldn't get what the big deal was. Now I get it, and that sounds silly to say now because it's so ubiquitous. You ain't doing nothing outside the cloud nowadays. But I remember thinking there's going to be this left-right kind of I'm Microsoft, I'm AWS thing, and that didn't last long at all. You use whichever one works, and they all are good. All of them, and I like that because I think that is a statement of how awesome the technology is becoming. And how ubiquitous the whole tech's coming. You can do just about everything in each cloud, but some are different than others. And we consume Azure a lot because of that. My efforts at the job. I'm a Microsoft guy, so when I move into the Azure space, the nomenclature, although it's cloud centric and a little bit protracted, it makes more sense to me. AWS, I would be practicing something for months just to find out it had a funky name, so I'm looking in the wrong direction. I remember on a recent project trying to do logs. You do that as a security engineer. It's a lot about forwarding logs really fast so you can analyze them and make decisions or alerts. And Amazon Kinesis was the technology platform that allowed you to do that on a large scale really fast. And I just didn't know what it was called. So that's how my Amazon experience, AWS experiences go. But I'm glad to continuously discover that you can learn it wherever you can, then transfer it over. Find the parity in the other platform.
Right.
So that's my workflow.
And what's so wild to me, there's so many aspects of that. Like learning one in itself is a gem or a jewel. Like if you can go somewhere like, hey, I know AWS, I'm like, all right, come on. But like, what you described feels to me like the essence of software solution. Like we have these 3 products, Google, Azure, and AWS, and which one fits what. And it also reminds me of like when we're building like an application or a site, like frameworks, when it comes to like, is React the best solution, is Angular, or is Vue? And just, I guess, now seeing it seeing it in a DevOps like view, I feel like that wasn't always the case, because there were like a giant that one always strictly used, either you were Cisco or Juniper, or you were like this or that, and now it's caught, like it's sped up so much that, hey, we have like solutions for this now where you can switch over to multiple things.
That's a good thing, huh?
Make sure it's like, this is what best solves our problem.
That's right.
So we'll run with that.
As a Microsoft-centric engineer, I do know is that although Satya Nadella's taken them in a fantastic direction, they still got a little bit of that legacy behavior of kind of playing the monopoly bully game, where they present something and it's almost vaporware. Microsoft's burnt me. I learned to slow down so that I don't get caught off guard by Microsoft's the weird game they play sometimes with driving adoption for their platform and trying to keep you on it. But they're walking backwards. They're walking backwards to a more open source stance, if you want to call it that. It's hard when you've got a company that made its gazillions off of a monopoly game, if you will, like an antitrust business strategy. That was Steve Ballmer and all those guys. Now Nadella and them are just going slow, but they're like opening more and more up to be not open source, but definitely crowdsourcing how they develop it, the directions they take on their platforms. You can see it with Microsoft Teams right now, the way they're like getting ahead of Zoom.
So that's I start utilizing Microsoft Teams for the first time, and really, like, of course, the comparisons that I usually have are Zoom and Google Meets. I really like, so me and my father share a space as far as where we're just really using it to kind of drop off files as far as like investor knowledge and like just different things, but it's pretty robust. I think
it is.
One of the like most of the teachers are using it nowadays as far as like MPS, so it's cool that they've been able to navigate in that space as well. I'd hopefully see more of that. But
I don't know, you can't trust any articles, but it seems like they're ahead in the enterprise space, because with Corona, of course, everybody's stuck at home, and Zoom got really, really busy, and I think they got more expensive. At least at my company, that's what happened. We literally switched because I guess the prices got bananas. And the Teams, I don't think it's as good looking as Slack, definitely not as good looking as Slack, and not quite as simplified as Zoom, but the integrations are insane. And the whole, what do they call that? Common data services, you ever heard of CDS? The whole back-end data lake on any cloud provider. It's a generic term. I don't know if that's what AWS calls it, but the integrations are insane. I've never seen them easier or implemented in more easy way than on Microsoft, where you can go to Power Automate or SharePoint, and it's nothing you can't script or integrate, because the data's already there. I don't know what that language is. It looks kind of wonky. I don't know if it's got a name. It looks a little bit like F#, but it has its own language, so that you can create automations and integrations, where with Slack, you better hope a plugin already exists for it, or you have to author one. And with Zoom, you can't do it at all. So Teams is crushing in that one category, and that's important. I got now, like, if my boss emails me and says, it's okay to do this work tonight at midnight. Once I get the email, I get alert on my phone, a notification, and then I get a reminder, and it schedules itself all automatically. And you can author those like right on the fly with Microsoft 365, and no other cloud's doing that in the enterprise productivity suite. I don't know, it's nerd stuff. I don't know what I'm saying, but it's heavy. It speaks to what everyone else is going to have to compete against right now.
Now, of course, like, being innovative is the name of the game now. So I guess on that subject, like, your system engineering now, do you see that like shifting or, you know, moving in like adding the next skill set? Do you see a next skill set that you want to reach for?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a few. That brings up some interesting thoughts too, because I don't know which one to pick all the time, and I don't know how many more times I'm going to be able to ingest the technology. It's not only getting more abstract, but it's like folding over faster, as we said earlier. It's not taking 10 years for something else to replace the way you do it now. It's so fast. But yeah, man, I don't know what Kubernetes is. I don't get it. I don't need 1,000 web servers. I watch a gazillion tutorials and videos, and they're all just, here's how you spin up 100,000 web servers. And so I don't get it, you know what I mean? So not everything is built for the sysadmin work I want to do, but I keep on, the idealist in me, I keep trying to repurpose it and readopt it. Right now we're trying out our next big managed code platform. We're gonna let go of, I think, what's the one? Bitbucket. We're gonna let go of that. And I'm hoping we pick up GitLab, but you know, you have GitHub, you have a ton of other ones too that I hear about that are private and small. But sysadmins, we don't get to take advantage of that much. So what I'm hoping and waiting for is the next thing that serves systems engineer, but forces that DevOps workflow.
That's interesting.
Because we're not working purely in code. I might have a gazillion scripts, and I want to be able to store them centrally, and I want the guys that work under me to be able to get the latest working version of some script I wrote right there. You get what I mean?
Right.
But that's the limit of it. So the full pipeline, check in, check out, doesn't really serve us, but we're trying to make it work for us.
So you starting to get into like integration and like that development process.
Yes, to answer you more directly, that's the next thing I want to do. We want a DevOps traditional sysadmin practices where we're usually the gray bearded dude in the corner that's got all the secrets, keeping the whole company working. Can't do that no more. You got to be transparent, open with what you're doing, and that forces a whole nother discipline. And it's tricky seeing how hard it is for me and my guys to adopt to that. You know, I'm 38, so I'm like a real old millennial, so I'm right there on that edge of, I got the sensibilities of both generations, right?
I tell you what, you young in tech years. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. People getting started at age, 40, even 50, because it's not strenuous. It's not a strenuous job.
That's beautiful,
as long as your mind works, you are good to go. And that will forever be an attractive piece of this this industry. To your point, as far as no longer to be able to sit in the corner and have your headphones on, like that.
That was my dream. To be that dude, to figure out something real difficult that no one else knew how it worked, and then that created my job security. And you're not seeing that anymore. You're seeing people with more than half a foot in independence and entrepreneurship, and I'm so impressed with it. Generationally, to see the people coming behind me approaching it that way. They're not all just looking for some corporation to pay them and retire from there. I love that about what's going on right now, especially for our people, for our community.
I think I definitely I empathize with that, as far as like when I got to work and I was in a cubicle in my desk. It was almost like that's what the company wanted. It's like, hey, you're just sitting here and you know what you're doing and you're working on it. When you need to ask questions, you can. But I think the shift in obviously terms like pair programming and more of like group projects, as far as getting this stuff together, it has helped one, for me personally, increase technical communication. And I found that once I increased my technical communication, I also better understood a lot of what I was talking about.
Well, help me understand what you mean by technical communication.
Well, just going through the steps of explaining something to someone else.
Technical or non-technical?
Technical, I guess technical.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, as far as because I felt like I had a grasp of my task, as opposed to just going through the motions. And once somebody will pop up on you and well, why are you doing that? And I think it's not that that wasn't the case, but I feel like the volume has increased on that, especially when you're constantly with somebody, you're shooting back and forth. And as far as okay, now we're explaining everything to each other. We're explaining everything to each other.
That's a whole nother competence to be able to do that. I was wondering if that was what you were referring to, because again, that's a challenge I run into that I'm still working with. Not used to having to explain to somebody how you did your kung fu. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
It's a secret.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't, and that doesn't scale anymore. And I'm curious on what made that happen. I got some crazy little wild theories because I think it's diversity that made that happen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's some portion of the internal business functions that is a protraction of the macro capitalist function, right? Of if you got something to sell, it doesn't benefit me to tell my customer that the guy next door has a better product, right? So there's a certain sort of subversiveness and secretiveness that's a part of typical corporations, right, in the West or in the United States, and that ain't flying anymore. So it's interesting to see that, you know. You gotta really have a better thing you're offering, right, or do it better.
When you sound like that, it's like a breakdown of a system, and there's something so liberating about that as far as like growth and
that's
progressing.
why I'm thinking about it, because when I imagined the Silicon Valley explosion, like when I kind of think of it philosophically or mythologically, I wonder if that's what went on out there, you know? I wanted to hear more from the guy you guys interviewed. I don't know if I'm watching the pods in order or not, but he had did some time out there, and
Rashad.
I wanted to hear more about that because I'm so interested in, like, culturally and socially what's really going on out there, you know? Because especially in the DevOps movement and culture, I'm of the mind that I think it's diversity, the minorities that made that happen, because it's a more communicative, collective approach to doing the work. That's all it really is, you know what I mean? And you get to see these crazy benefits when you stop trying to treat everything like an internal corporate trade secret, you know, and capitalize on it. Now we're just gonna, whoever can do it best, contribute, and we all get the best product.
Right, because you're speaking strongly toward like perspective. Really perspective. I'm like, man, let me get some new. Like that is the essence. Even again, you talk about this industry. Like, hey, like Mark, I'm not looking at this right. Like, can you put eyes on this? And that's literally all that you're asking companies to do. Like, get fresh eyes. Like, I'm telling you, it can be the solution, because you got 10 of your same guys working on this problem. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad.
That's right.
It's just that you're offering.
I run into that a lot in
new.
my work, man, where I get sort of classified as an innovator, and it's one of those empty, what do you call it, kind of like being told you're articulate. It's like, I don't know what you mean by that, because I'm just speaking English. So what perspective do you already hold? And it happens a lot at work, you know, internally, where I consider myself a purist, an IT purist, so I'm always thinking technically. But if you've ever worked with any vocational purist, they're that way. If you ever like had your uncle over that's a plumber, and he thinks he can, you know, fix the TV with plumbing, that's how they be. They like what they know is what they know. So at my job, where it's a customer service company that's up to its eyeballs in technology, what I'm considering is normal baseline technical implementation appears to be really fly innovative stuff. And I'm like, how many companies are really thinking this way? They really gotta get more diversity if this is a surprise to them. Like, you hadn't thought of this?
I think it's a bit of all of what you said. Like, and for it being an opportunity, like, hope that continues to happen somewhere else for somebody else. And as long as that continues to happen, you know, you'll continue to have this environment to where it's like, like, we got innovators, and it's just like, no, I'm just being me.
That's right.
Like,
it's the natural outcome if you had a fully representative environment. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be surprised by this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
I'm sure there are
finding out you're supposed to put cinnamon in your sweet potato pie or something. Like, you didn't know that? You couldn't have been around certain people from this part. You know, that's how I feel about it. You know what I mean? I was wanting to ask you, though, before we go in the other direction, did you start with your time as a serving in the military? Did you start technically there, or were you doing IT before that, or something like it?
Before that, so it really started in the military, but even before that, my interest came with game development, and then the example, like my father, he's a program analyst. So he was really the example as far as like making sure all that stuff was around us. But I, you know, what I used it for was, you know, gaming. And even with my friends, but that was all I knew. And so even when I started to head in directions, like with the military, I knew I wanted to have something technical in aspect. I knew I also liked working with my hands, as far as like building things. And so that's why I was the hardware side as far as infrastructure when it came to Cat 5 cable, and I'm forgetting the name of it.
Did that ever put you in any data centers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another world, man. It's a whole nother discipline.
Actually, like after we deployed, we came back and they wanted to do a joint force operations a coalition of countries. And so it was just a practice exercise, but they had us building out data centers, and we went to Germany during Oktoberfest. And when I tell you, like I'm grateful for the experiences that the military provided, because it allowed me a lot of opportunities, but also it just, I was like, okay, I'm in this data center, and they was like, yeah, just break what you want and have fun.
I've run into a few colleagues that kind of had that that vector to where they're at now. They had that path where they were in the military, and I wonder, it seems like they're all sharp. The military is so efficient in how they teach you and stuff that they're really good. The guys that know them. I know some networking guys, of course, a few networking guys, and then some directory services guys that are just elites, you know, because of the time they spent in the military. That's really cool, man.
I think it has, because for me it had to be like you said, an idea of what I wanted, like even before going in there, because that's a big help, because like they'll send you where they need you.
Right.
And it's like, all right, well, this is what I want to work towards, and make sure that's constantly in my mind. But also, when that aligns with what they can offer, then I think that becomes a beautiful opportunity, and you take advantage of it as much as you can, because like the pure experience, and that's the military. If I don't say it, it's not theory; it's all application. Like, hey man, we don't know how this works. Like, hey, you can just go put your hands on it. And like, you're the only guy at that point. You become the most expert in your field at like Cisco routers, and it's like, oh yeah, no, Trevor did that thing. He slapped the box on the side, and it started pinging, and so we're good now.
You mentioned Juniper. So did you work with Juniper hardware?
Yeah, so that's when I transitioned out of the military, and my first network administration job, network technician job, was at this company called Cybera. And they handle the point of sale systems for like gas stations and a lot of big name companies. But in between that was their proprietary product, which was a router built off the back of Juniper.
Yeah, the Juno S is really popular in purpose-built route switching solutions like that. And I encountered it a lot, like in my last job, which was essentially a networking company. But I never touched it. The pure networking guys touched that stuff. I just dealt with a little bit of Cisco, a little Sienna, for large telecom stuff. A lot of my motivation to be a system engineer, or the reason I became or call myself that, is because I would encounter things and be maddened by not knowing how it worked, and mad that no one could tell me either. Point of sale systems, ATMs, you know, like somebody's wiring that up. It's running on a computer, obviously. Why don't we know that? So at tech school, that was always my thing. Like, we'd be reading and doing what I felt was a little too much academic work, and I was wanting to know, how do I build somebody? Like, I got businesses that I could be running cable for right now and making money, but I really don't know how to charge them, or where I go get this stuff. I didn't know about Graybar right up the street from here, biggest supplier in the region. If you want to go get 10,000 feet of Cat 5, you know what I mean? They don't teach that kind of stuff in the tech schools, you know? So a lot of my independent work, it was kind of motivated around those gaps in knowledge, you know what I mean? I would get big jobs sometime and honestly not know how to complete them. You know? And so it made me obsessive about gathering the right information to kind of quell that insecurity.
I know you talked about like mentorship. Now, was this always at different capacities? Because for me, like even now, it's always at different capacities, and I love that. Was there, did you, like I guess out in the field when you were at companies, did that look different from when you were actually in like technical training?
Yeah, it did. It did. I don't know what to attribute to other than luck. I'm a little brother, so I got 3 older brothers and a lot of really close friends of my older brothers that I call my brother, and I don't know why, but it was always someone showing me the right thing to do. I don't know if it was my curiosity or what, but as I get older, I feel more and more lucky about that, you know, and blessed about that. So it was a little bit of both. I would run into, like I said before, some guy that was tired of the job, and I'm hungry to do it. I was a technology director for the Boys and Girls Club in the region. For about 5 years. I love working with young people and getting them in front of computers and showing them how to do stuff, you know, whether it be Photoshop or something to expose them. And in doing that, I ended up stewarding a really big grant from Microsoft. I still think they do it. They throw about $30 million a year at Boys and Girls Clubs, and what that means is that money goes to any sort of programming you want to do that exposes underprivileged kids to technology.
Okay.
So we did one called Club Tech. They send you a bunch of software and hardware. You know what I mean? You set up the computer lab and you teach the kids in the neighborhood the thing, right?
That's dope.
In doing that, I got so good at it because it was my side way of exposing myself to huge technical challenges without repercussions. Because the Boys and Girls Club don't care if I blow up the router, right? But I had Cisco routers and standing up Server 2003 while teaching kids how to program with Alice. You ever heard of Alice?
No.
It's one of those platforms that like sort of abstracts programming and teaches kids programming and through building blocks or something like that.
Okay.
They come around every few years, you know, and like independent school districts pick them up. It happens all the time.
I'm just imagining like that's probably the perfect sandbox.
Yeah, it was.
Like you got
that's why I'm telling you to get to the answer of the mentorship thing. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I got super lucky a lot of times. And so the Boys and Girls Club said, "Hey, can you do this for all of Kentucky?" You know, and so I did it for a few sites in Western Kentucky. Yeah. And while in Glasgow, one site over from Bowling Green, I ran into this gentleman that was sick of doing networking, and he's the first dude to show me how to splice RJ45, you know, by hand, you know. And I ran the cabling for this old African American high school that was now the Boys and Girls Club. You know how we'll have our traditional buildings and they'll leave them there, but they might get used for something else. Yeah. There's one of those kind of joints in Glasgow, Kentucky, and so I'm running Cat 5 all over the place, not knowing what I'm doing. And then another guy comes along who worked with the guy that just retired and just gave me the whole responsibility. He comes along and was like, he just kind of taps me. It was like, hey, that's a heat pipe up there. So I had my Cat 5 on the heat pipe getting ready to get melted. It was one of those old buildings that used, what do you call those things? The burners? You ever seen that in an old building? Like it's a big water furnace, and that's how they heat the building? Yeah. I forget what they call them. Boiler rooms. Okay. They had a boiler room. And I'm running Cat 5, the plastic Cat 5 on the pipes for the boiler. So I had to go up there and realize stuff like that happened to me over and over and over. But I ended up learning an invaluable skill that was a trade that no one would give to you otherwise. And I can tell you a gazillion stories on the next time we sit down together about that. But that's what happened to me for being as in the mentorship. I was always just outside of understanding something and really hungry and a little bit annoyed. It really was a source of anxiety, to be honest, that like being poor. We need to wrap up, I think. My man just like this. You ain't getting another story. Bad. I'm saving that story. That's how it was for me. Wanting to get something, not knowing how to get there, and then somebody being in between me and that thing. And I got a gazillion of those type of occurrences, and just dumb luck, man.
Man, Mark, like, of course, I got like plenty of questions off of that. Obviously, that means we're gonna have to have you back. I appreciate you.
No problem. Like, at least now y'all know why I'm so mouthy in there. I'm dying to share information and little shortcuts and secrets about how to move in IT.
We really want to expose and highlight, because I know there are more people that have the same questions and are curious as well, and so your information becomes very valuable. All right, I'm gonna do the rundown of shout outs. Like, all right, so first and foremost, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there for serving. We appreciate your service. This is your day, so thank you so much. Also, like, subscribe, and follow the Black.Codes on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Yeah, also, of course, I can't forget Tacos with a Twist for allowing us to use their space. Thank you so much. If ever you're in the neighborhood, Berry Hill area, swing by Tacos with a Twist. I think their taco of the month is the crispy catfish, which I might grab one of those as well.
Sounds good.
But yeah, also a personal shout out to our Black fashion business. Today, if you guys don't know this, can I turn around and show this? I'm sporting one of my favorite artists. Is it on the?
That's fly.
Is it showing on the front? My man Doodlejor. He is a creative, inspirational artist, and his merchandise is available on Instagram. You can go to Doodlejor as the name. I think that's the name. I'm messing up, Jordan. But yeah, like, I got you, bro. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll have it in the links below, because this will be online. So yeah, and I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Stick to the code, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace, y'all.